Hi there, everybody. This is Philip Kelly. Me and my wife have kind of charged the effort in trying to get some relief and some mitigation from the installation of a commercial cell phone tower next to Heritage Estates, Bel Air Estates, and the Seventh-day Adventist Lithonia Academy. I wanted to play this video for everybody because I think it's got some key elements in it that show really the lengths to which the City of Stonecrest has gone to obfuscate and ensure that the truth about how this was approved and how this installation was done was actually done under the table. And you know, we have reason to believe because of these actions that there was some communication between the city and the developer Vertical Bridge that weren't honest and truthful, that were intended to make sure that there wouldn't be any public hearing. So I'm going to go ahead and play this clip. This is from the meeting on the 25th of March, and I'm going to pause it from time to time to kind of interject the truth of what actually is in the record. So here we go. This is from the 25th of March, Stonecrest City Council meeting.
How do we plan to handle that? And my other question is, and I do understand, I've worked for AT&T, so I'm very familiar with the FCC rules. The FCC rules, even their rules say that there should be much community outreach and notification. That is in the FCC rules. We had no notification. There was no community outreach, and even in the ad that was ran, now Stonecrest did not run the ad. We did nothing. The ad that was ran by Vertical Bridge in Champion, so we didn't even run the ad as a courtesy to the city or to the district in our legal organ. We did no outreach, no notification. FCC even says that there should be notification.
Can we?
I'm done, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I just had that same question. We brought it up a couple of meetings ago about the zoning. I know that's not a part of this particular one, but item, but it's going to have to be addressed as it relates to the property in question.
Mr. Turner, Mr. Doma, the staff initially looked at the zoning. The information as relates to the conditional zoning for daycare is not in the minutes from the zone.
So Mr. Winston Denmark made a statement there. He said that the conditional zoning does not appear in the minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the document up here. Okay, so this document has essentially three parts. It has what's called the plat. So that's the first page. And that shows the address, and it shows the dimensions and the size of the property. It says C2, and then it's got this document written in, CZ76082. So the first two letters, CZ, that means conditional zoning. So one could easily conclude from the first two letters of that document is, hey, this is a conditional zoning document. It's not a rezone. It's not a blanket zoning of C2. It's a conditional zoning of C2. So we go on further down, and then in here we've got the area that he focused in on like a laser beam, which is the application of Raggedy Ann and Andy Child Daycare Centers, Inc. And it says to conditionally rezone property located on the south side of Mill Road, blah, 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 for a summer day camp for children. And then it goes on to describe how that summer day camp is going to be run, what the limitations would be. And the question becomes, why go into this level of detail? Well, the reason is simple. This piece of property has a land use of rural residential. It is not a commercial zone. Commercial enterprises aren't allowed in this area. So if you're going to get a designation of C2, it has to have conditions. And those conditions have to be in keeping with the character of that area. And that's why they went into such lengths to put all this detail in here. And so now to Mr. Winston Denmark's point, right? So his claim is that it's not in the minutes. So here's the minutes of the DeKalb County Board of Commissioners, right here, minutes. July 27, 1976, 10 a.m. And so it's a regular public meeting of the Board of Commissioners of DeKalb County, Georgia, which was the governing body at the time for this particular property. It has the attendance of all the members present, which is typical in a minutes, right? And then it has the invocation. Tom A. Whiting from the Decatur First Methodist Church did the invocation, Pledge of Allegiance. And then it's got an order of business. And so the chairman called for the approval of the minutes of the last regular commission meeting of July 9, 1976. Okay, so this is the minutes. This is the part that Mr. Winston Denmark says doesn't exist. And so here's the minutes, right? So the location, south side of Evans Mill Road, 300 feet southwest of Ragsdale Road. There's the plat number. There's the conditional zoning number. And there's the usage from R100 to C2 for a summer day camp for children. Now, it doesn't say conditional there, but look at the action by the Planning Commission. It says date 7/6/76. The action is approved as conditioned by applicant. That's as clear as you can get. It's approved as conditioned by the applicant. It's not approved as unconditioned. It's not just, hey, approved. It's approved as conditioned by the applicant. And then the action by the Board of Commissioners is approved as conditioned. Again, there's that key word, conditioned. So this is fantastic that one could read this document, could say, oh, yeah, there's a conditional zoning document, but there aren't any conditions in that zoning document. That's incredible. So we'll go ahead and we'll listen to the rest of the video and this tortured, almost ridiculous analysis of it. I'll go ahead and restart the video.
Decision, nor is it anywhere else in the record. It's in the application from the applicant in terms of what that proposed use is. And I believe that, I don't know whether you received my legal opinion on that. I looked at the issue and I addressed two possible areas where it may have been problematic in terms of the conditional zoning and failure to post a sign. And at the end of the day, I'm in agreement with the staff that initially looked at it, that the zoning, the standards that set forth in state law in terms of when a conditional zoning is in place are simply not met here. The Raggedy Ann and Andy use it for the summer, X number of days throughout the summer, that's in the application, but that's not in an ordinance that rezoned the property. And if it is, we couldn't find it. I looked diligently for it, because if it's in the ordinance, because when you rezone a piece of property, you do it by ordinance, and the ordinance sets forth those conditions. There's no ordinance that says that this zoning was conditional. It just says it's zone C1. So I was not able to find minutes that reflected that, nor was I able to find anything in the record that reflected the conditional zoning other than the application. And the application itself doesn't control. That's just what the applicant put in the application. So if there is a conditional zoning on the property, it's certainly not in the record.
So again, I'd like to re-interject. Here's the minutes. This is the minutes. Actions by Planning Commission. Approved as conditioned by applicant. Approved as conditioned. So if what he's looking for is a verbatim copy of this in the minutes, you aren't going to find that in any conditional zoning document. That's not the way that that's done. An applicant puts in an application saying, hey, this is what we're going to have this conditional zoning for. And then, in the minutes, they discuss it, and then they approve it as conditioned. And here it's clear, this is in the minutes, approval as conditioned by applicant. And then by the Board of Commissioners, approved as conditioned. And as for the reference to the zoning ordinance, I mean, if you go by the zoning ordinance for this piece of property is rural residential. So they can't change it to C2. I think he said C1, but he probably meant C2. They cannot change it to C2 without some document showing the conditions of that C2. In other words, they looked at what this property was going to be used for that commercial application, and deemed it acceptable in a rural residential area. A cell phone tower or a big strip mall or, I don't know, aluminum smelting plant would not be acceptable in a rural residential area. And so this tortured, ridiculous analysis of this document just completely looks past this area of the document. We've emailed them multiple times trying to get an explanation for how they came up with that crazy idea that a conditional zoning document has no conditions in it. That somehow it just rezoned it to C2 without any change in the land use or without any change in anything. So we'll go back to the video and watch the rest of this, because there is some more information in here.
Okay.
And I prepared I apologize that the council did not receive it, but I prepared a legal opinion. It's in writing, and it explained all of the factors and the rationale for why I concluded what I concluded. But my conclusion is consistent with what the staff determined in the first place.
And I'd like to interject now, too, that I've submitted an open records request for that legal opinion, because I want to know how he came to that conclusion. I mean, did he just say it for the purpose of the meeting, or did he really have a legal opinion? And I'd honestly like to know. So there is an open records request for that, and hopefully, at some point, we'll actually get that.
Okay. Here's where we are. What council has to digest is this, and I apologize, Mr. Marcus, I can't go that way. You don't have to be fully aware that this is no small fight. So I'm going to put this on the executive side of the House. And you all will have to decide how much we're going to go to the river. So let me tell you what I mean by this. I'm going to ask staff tomorrow to put a stop work order on the cell phone tower.
So there was the commitment made by the mayor during that meeting. He took me and my wife to the side into a private room, and he said that he was going to put a stop work order on the cell phone tower. Then again, he came back, and to his credit, I give him credit for this, in spite of that tortured analysis of a conditional zoning document by Mr. Winston Denmark, he still said in the meeting that he was going to direct staff to put a stop work order on the cell tower at 3610 Evans Mill Road. To this day, which is now April 11th, 2019, they're continuing to work on that cell tower. And all of our emails and all of our phone calls to the City of Stonecrest in reference to the stop work order have gone unanswered. No one has answered any of it. I just had a meeting with the new city manager, Julian Jackson, and he doesn't know anything about it because he's new. That was his claim. So he promised he would supposedly get me a copy of that legal opinion that was written by Mr. Denmark, and that's where we are. But this is important. It's important to understand that Mayor Laurie made a commitment to put a stop work order on that cell tower, and today that commitment has not been met. We'll go ahead and continue on with the video.
What that is going to do is trigger a legion of lawyers. I just want you all to know that. And with that, at the same time, Mr. City Attorney, we can strengthen our ordinances with regards to cell phone towers, particularly since, based on your legal opinion, which I respect and know that you're true on this, I don't want to open Pandora's box, so that if we offer a moratorium, now 6 companies are on top of us because they see that has a weakness, in the market. So with that, counsel, I want to give you notice to think on, but tomorrow we start that fight, and that's where we are.
And unfortunately, today is the 11th of April, and apparently that fight was never started. We'll go ahead and continue with the video.
Any comments, questions?
Yeah, I have one comment. Well,
Sure.
actually, what I want to do is formulate a motion to go ahead and authorize the city attorney to put together an ordinance or whatever is required for you to engage yourself in strengthening the ordinance that we currently have. I believe it's telecommunication ordinance. So I don't know whether that requires a vote, but I think we should move on that right away. I'm in full support of whatever the mayor decides to do in regards to the cell tower. And as far as a fight to dig into, I'm fine with digging in on this one. So in regards to the...
See, so this all sounds great. What an awesome statement. If this is a fight, we're fine on digging in on this fight. Well, so far, up till today, there hasn't been any fight, unfortunately. And so that's the purpose of doing this video, is really to try to get the truth out there, get people informed so that they can get motivated about this issue. We'll go ahead and continue on with the video now.
vote.
Yeah, you can just direct me to do it, and I'm fine. I don't know if you need an actual formal vote, but you can put it right.
If he needs a formal vote, I'll second that.
So we'll I make a motion to direct the city attorney to make an ordinance that strengthens our cell tower of deliverance as per today.
Second.
All right. Properly moved in second. Discussion.
Just one quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
So if I heard the city attorney correct, I believe what he's saying is the existing tower at 3610 Evans Mill Road is legally zoned. Can I get clarification for the record, Madam Clerk? Is the tower legally zoned?
No, what I said was that if there was a conditional zoning on the property, it does not appear in the record, so therefore we cannot enforce a conditional zoning on the property.
So again, I want to reiterate here that it is in the record, and it's preposterous, right, that he's not talking about it. The record shows within the minutes, approved as conditioned by applicant. That's the record. And if you're talking about an ordinance, the ordinance is the land use. The land use is rural residential. And so there's no way that they can rezone to C2 under a rural residential land use without a condition. There has to be some exception to that land use that is available and fits the character zone of rural residential. And so, again, this is just, it's really a preposterous legal analysis, but we'll get back to the video.
So what about the residential area? What about the church? What about the school? What about the notification process? Are those things that the community, can the citizens continue to address some of those things that are important to them about the zoning of the tower, or is this, does it stop right here? Is that what you're saying?
So the tower has been erected, and so I guess if your question is there any legal mechanism by which we can have the tower taken down based on the notion that it was improperly zoned in the first place, the answer is no. I mean, the tower's been erected. I mean, here's the thing: any citizen or the city, if the citizen or the city believes that the tower was improperly erected and should come down, they can certainly pursue that legally. If I'm directed as a city attorney to initiate legal action to have the tower removed, I'll do as I'm instructed. But if you're asking me if that effort's going to be successful, the answer is no.
So again, I'd like to stop the video here for a second. That statement is based on the assumption that there is no conditional zoning. And that assumption is totally in error. It's completely incorrect. Reading this conditional zoning document as if it's just from R100 to C2 with no conditions whatsoever is a ridiculous reading of this document. And so the statements on the part of Mr. Winston Denmark are just, they're just wrong. They're just totally wrong. And I would say that the city made a commitment in this meeting to take legal action to take this tower down, and they should keep that commitment. They should issue that stop work order, which is what they committed to do, and they should take the tower down. So we'll get back to the video now, watch the rest of it.
So, Mr. Mayor, can we move on the original vote, and then we can maybe, if we want to, we can circle back and continue the conversation?
Yes, sir, we can.
In regards to this, cell tower.
And what is the original vote for the record?
Original vote was to, motion was to instruct the city attorney to strengthen the ordinance with regards to cell phone towers. And it's been properly moved and second, and this is the discussion section of it.
How long will it take to put together an ordinance? Would this be several months, or can we do that quickly?
I can have it for a first read at the next meeting.
Okay.
All right. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Mr. City Attorney, we have a couple of tasks. I want to give my word to council and to our constituents that I will do best efforts to move us in that direction. And I'll be speaking with a couple of three of you afterwards so that we'll know. Even tonight will be a late night, but we'll reconvene tomorrow. And as I said earlier, know the fight that you're getting in. That's all I want to tell folks. Know the fight that you're getting in, and I'm willing to take that fight. All right.
Mr. Mayor, what about the stop work order?
I have to see about it in the morning.
In the morning?
Yes, ma'am. All right.
Okay, so that was the end of it, and it ended with the stop work order that still hasn't been issued. So thank you for watching the video. Thank you for taking the time to at least listen to the side of the residents of Heritage Estates, Bel Air Estates, and the Lithonia Seventh-day Adventist Church, who all adjoined this property, and all of, none of us got any notification of this. There were a handful of people who knew about it, and that handful of people kept it secret from everybody else. And we really didn't find out about it until the tower was erected. So from this video, it's clear that the city made a commitment to put a stop work order on that cell phone tower, and I think rightly so, because this is a conditional property, and nowhere in their application, Vertical Bridge's application for this tower, did they mention that this was zoned really as conditioned for a daycare camp for children, and that their installation would not meet those conditions. So both in the application and again in the minutes, it says approval as conditioned by applicant. And that's really all I got to say. Please give City of Stonecrest calls, email them, write them, go to the council meetings, do everything you can, and bring up the fact that they made a commitment to do this. They shouldn't just say this in a meeting and then just blow it off and not do it. Thanks for listening. Really appreciate it. And God bless you all.